Hey there, it's Silver. This is Coridden? I'm going to say Coridden because of the fact that you can ride your co-op partner. I think that's sort of the idea. But this is a class-based hack-and-slash action RPG. From the classic top-down perspective, the sort of isometric look, of course it's 3D, so it's not technically isometric, but you get what I mean. And the big sort of selling point here is that you can shapeshift into different creatures. So you are playing as a human, but also as several different kinds of creature that you can use as well. And you can swap between them in battle, and in fact you're encouraged to do so because they each have their own energy gauge that acts like a stamina meter, and they deplete and fill separately, so you're encouraged to swap back and forth in combat. And this is where the whole ride your co-op partner thing comes from, because your co-op partner can transform into one of the beasts, which you can then use as a mount. In terms of mechanics, there are 4 different classes that you can choose from and 7 different beast masteries, and each of those 7 types of beasts is actually multiple kinds with different subtypes. The class you choose is all about combat. They have all sorts of different, they have a skill tree with all sorts of different purchasable active and passive skills that you can use and also set. You can have quite a few set at once, so you have a good amount of combat variety. But the beast masteries aren't only about combat. They do have skill trees as well with lots of combat skills, but different beasts also have different traversal mechanics that they can use to get you into areas you couldn't get into before. So there's like a tiny bit of like Metroidvania DNA in there. You might have, say, a ramming beast that can ram through damaged walls, or a crocolisk that can swim up currents that are too strong for you to swim as a human. This is why, in terms of going through the main quest line, you're often encouraged to explore in these side areas where you will find new types of beasts to transform into, which will then allow you to advance further in the main quest line, and so on, just sort of keep doing that until you unlock them all. There is action RPG style loot, so you can find all sorts of different pieces of loot, armor pieces and weapons and things, just from defeating enemies or opening treasure chests and the like. And there is a fair amount of weapon variety, each with their own attack animations and combos that you can use, so that's pretty cool. It helps to add to the combat variety in general. But also, a lot of the loot it's got lots of different sockets in it, and you can find various socketable things that you can go to a workbench and combine with these weapons and gear in order to strengthen them. You'll find a lot of different gear that you come across will already have some of these slots filled sometimes, but you can also fill them yourself. And these different kinds of augments tend to be quite powerful, so they are things that you want to keep filled whenever you can, or whenever you get a new piece of gear that's got slots. It does cost a fair amount of money to actually go back home and slot stuff into these. You can also put new slots in a weapon if you want to. I think it also works with armor, but this is very expensive to do. While exploring around, you'll also find that there are a surprising number of secrets hidden around the world. Things that need some platforming skill to get to as a creature, for instance, because they allow you to jump much farther. So there are often areas out of reach to your human form that you can use a transformation for to get to. And these have like secret chests and other stuff in them, and in fact there's even some like unique and legendary stuff that you can find hidden away, usually hidden very well in some out-of-the-way areas or in a side quest that you need to do some extra bit of finding to actually come across. In terms of the main quest line, it's actually kind of a neat concept. It's not a super original one, but it's one that I enjoy whenever I see it usually, and that is the lost ancient city that is hidden away from the world that is being rediscovered, that sort of concept. The idea is that you found these gloves, and these gloves are what allow you to transform into various beasts. They're sort of like a prototype from a different civilization. So you're trying to find out exactly what they are, and they also have a sort of fatal flaw in them, a bit of damage that needs to be repaired. But in order to repair them, you have to go back to where they were made. So your first real difficulty is finding out where that even was in the first place, and then once you figure it out, you have to actually get there. There's this mostly abandoned city that's blocked off from the rest of the world by a big energy barrier. And it turns out these gloves can actually allow you to get past the barrier, but you have to sample the frequencies at each of the big towers that are generating the barrier in the first place. So the main bit of the quest line involves going around the world, finding your way to all these towers, defeating bosses along the way, and also defeating bosses in the towers usually, and then sampling the energy in each of them to eventually get through the barrier and into the lost city itself. And along the way, you're going to be meeting other characters for various kinds of side quests and things, as well as meeting your own family members that will need some help because your family seems to be in a pretty important place of technological advancement in this particular world. So people do sort of count on you for certain things, and your dad especially has a pretty major role in terms of the overall quest line. And there are 4 different characters, the 4 kids, that you yourself and all of your co-op partners can play as. So this game does have up to 4-player co-op if you want to play it that way. As you explore through this world, you'll also be finding things like fast travel points so that you can go back and forth between major areas, which is really useful because of the number of side quests that you can find. You will be wanting to return to previous areas and things for alternate pathways that lead to optional caves and dungeons and stuff, or going back to certain cities to talk to NPCs that you need to turn in quests for and all that good stuff. There's also the aforementioned gear upgrading system where you can use the workbench at your house to socket new things into your armor and weapons and stuff to improve them. The overall flow of the game follows kind of a specific pattern. Basically, you will explore 1 or 2 open areas, usually outdoor areas, and then you will find some sort of dungeon or major story important location that you'll spend more time in, like say a tower. And then you'll explore that area for quite a while, and then usually there will be 1 or 2 bosses in that area that you'll defeat, and then you'll get some sort of cutscene or otherwise like some story progression, and then you'll move on to some more outdoor areas that bridge to the next big important dungeon area. And that's how the sort of basic structure of the game will work. You then intersperse optional side areas like caves or forests or some other areas like that. These are bits that just have some loot and some extra experience and stuff. You don't have to go to them as part of the main quest, but it's often a good idea to for all that sweet extra stuff. And then occasionally you'll also intersperse in some side quests that will cause you to go to some other previously inaccessible areas like some dungeons and stuff to expand the world a bit there and do some optional objectives. There is a traditional experience and level system, but it works a little bit differently because of the whole beast form thing. Basically, as you level up, you get points that you spend on your class's skill trees. Each class has like 3 different skill trees that you can go down that have various different active skills that you can slot into your active skill buttons, as well as a bunch of passive improvements for your character. But at the same time that you're defeating enemies and getting experience for your actual human character themselves, you'll also be getting beast masteries for whatever beast is currently equipped. You equip them in the same way that you do any other kind of gear. You can have 1 type of beast equipped at a time. And that beast type will gain experience as you do and eventually level up its own mastery level, and you can go into each beast mastery and it will be its own skill tree separate from all of your other ones that you can spend their own points on. And you can use these to just add all sorts of passive extra effects to a beast just to make them stronger, but also add signature active skills that each beast possesses. So one of them might have a big shotgun poison breath attack, or the ability to slam the ground and have a bunch of rocks come out and do damage in a big circle, and things like that. Every beast has its own set of skills that you can eventually unlock as you complete the masteries for them. One thing that's kind of a missed opportunity, in my opinion, something I would have really liked to see, is the same sort of mastery system used for the weapon types. Because there are quite a few different weapon types. You can find halberds and maces and longswords and greatswords and stuff like that. There's quite a few. So it would be kind of cool if they were more than just 1 combo's worth of change. If you could actually have a sort of weapon mastery system that unlocked new combos or further combos or new capabilities for a weapon that made the weapon type individually matter more, because each one had its own sort of tree of stuff you could unlock for it as you used it. I think that would be a really cool system that would help the combat out a fair bit. The combat is, I think, pretty solid for an action RPG. It is very action-based. This isn't click combat. This is like hack and slash, probably use a controller combat. I think it's probably going to be better with a controller. Although I will say, I think the game really favors co-op, maybe a little bit too much. I understand that this is the kind of game where co-op is kind of the main idea. You know, it's a headlining feature. It's one of the main things you're expected to do. But it does have a solo play mode, and it would be nice if the solo gameplay was balanced a little bit better for one person. Because as it stands, this is definitely the kind of game where you really should play it co-op. It technically offers a single player mode, but that single player mode is obviously not really balanced for one person. So for one thing, you'll notice that your character always says we and us, even if there's only one of you, so it kind of makes it seem like you have some sort of issue going on, but that's mostly because it's clearly based around having multiple players at once. But also in terms of combat, I think the combat balance is in a really weird place that is clearly meant to be smoothed over with other people. For instance, you are constantly outnumbered like 1,000,000 to 1, which isn't necessarily a problem because that's common in action RPGs. The problem is the enemies are very spongy. They take a lot of hits to go down, and when there's like 30 of them on screen, that's a problem. If there's that many on screen, you usually expect to cut through them quickly, but you can't really do that as just one person because they're so spongy. Also, most enemies have attacks that can kill you in 2 to 3 hits. It doesn't seem to matter how much armor you have or how much defense you have. I never felt that the armor that I was wearing made any difference at all. It always felt like everything always killed me in 2 to 3 hits no matter what. So you have a combination of really large numbers of enemies that take forever to kill and can kill you almost instantly, which means you're really expected to be more than one person. As the levels get higher and enemies get more challenging, it really just means they get tons and tons more health and can also still kill you instantly whenever they feel like it. So again, the sort of DPS that you would need to be able to cut through these enemies in a more reasonable amount of time would come from 3 or 4 people. This issue is also compounded in boss fights. For one, bosses have just obscene amounts of health. They take forever to kill because, again, the health seems to be balanced around having 3 or 4 people wailing on them at once and not just you. So if you're fighting a boss as a solo player, the amount of health they have is just like insultingly high. But there's also the fact that bosses tend to spawn ads in like ridiculous amounts. So you never seem to just fight a boss. You always have to fight a boss plus his 25 friends, which is another one of those things that's clearly balanced between having multiple people instead of just being solo. So basically, I think this game's overall balance is really weird as a solo game. It's clearly not meant for that. And it doesn't really do a good job of altering its co-op balance to be more applicable to a solo player. The game is also more than a little bit buggy. I've noticed that it crashes relatively often. I've had several crashes while playing, and I've never been able to tell exactly what caused me to crash because I was doing different things each time, but it does crash. Also, it's easy to do things like get stuck in the terrain, forcing you to quit and reload, or have puzzles not reset correctly, so you have to reload to sort of redo them, or indeed have enemies getting stuck in things, including bosses, which causes you to not be able to kill them, so you've got to reload there. So the game is a bit buggy, I think. It's not like catastrophically buggy to the point where you're not going to be able to complete it because there's just constant bugs. It's not that bad, but there are more than its fair share of them. I think overall, Coridden is probably a pretty solid action RPG for a good co-op experience that manages to have a pretty fun world to adventure through and a really cool shape-shifting mechanic that makes it stand out a bit. But I think for me personally, it's just not really for me because I play games solo, and this is very much not the kind of game that is meant to be played solo. So if you're like me and you want to play this game single player, just know that it is clearly not balanced for that, and you probably won't have a great time. But if you want to get up to 4 friends together to play through it, it'll probably be a pretty solid, if buggy, action RPG experience to go through. So I will put the link in the description below this video to the Steam store page for Coridden if you wish to check it out yourselves. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.